Right, it's Mike from the Mike James Rock Show. This man needs no instructions, but I will anyway. It's Devin Townsend. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm so much taller than you today.
I'll sit upright.
All right, I'll slouch.
You can slouch and just relax. Back in the UK. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How was Europe?
Good. Yeah, you know, it's like any tour. It's a ceremony of opposites. Someday you love it with every ounce of your soul. Another day you're just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's so dramatic. It's pathetic. You know, but this tour in itself has been, I mean, I've been touring for 25 years, man, and this tour's been great. Great people. The other bands are really, have become good friends, and,
awesome.
And yeah, it's like no hierarchy. It's been really well attended too, so.
Because you're out with Periphery and Shining for the whole European tour.
Yeah. We've been out with Shining many times before. We share a vehicle with them, and it's just, you know, you find people that you can live with, and you tend to stick with that.
Especially if you're going around Europe. It's a 3-4 week kind of time, isn't it? You've got to be in each other's pockets.
That's it. And if you haven't seen Shining, they're one of the best bands you will ever see. They're not the Swedish Shining, they're the Norwegian one.
Okay, not to get confused because they're completely
different
in styles.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I actually like the other one too, but this one, if you haven't seen Shining, they're just astounding.
Cool.
Yeah. And Periphery as well. I mean, Periphery are really kind of hip band right now.
Yeah, they're on fire, aren't they?
Yes, very much.
Last time we caught up with you was a Somnisphere. The set seems to have went down really well.
Yeah.
You've been pretty hectic since as well.
Yeah, maybe a little less so than I have been in prior years, but you know, let's not fool ourselves. Yes.
You got the new album out. Congratulations on is it the Juno or
Yeah.
Yeah. If metal bands are getting recognised in countries like Canada and things like that in the national, I guess the equivalent to over here is the Brit Awards.
Yeah.
Do you think there's other award ceremonies around the world that should follow suit and open up to all genres of music? Because it's a huge award, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't have any definite answer to that. Just because it's the way that I perceive what I do is it's nice to be recognized in that way, but it's certainly never going to change too much. I think that it's more an acknowledgement of this style of music, which is certainly a start.
Yeah.
But I don't think in the same way as the Grammys or the Brit Awards would acknowledge heavy music, is it really going to significantly boost its popularity, right? But it is great.
Is metal more mainstream in Canada?
No. No. No, we're the redheaded stepchild, right? But I mean, at the same time, it's where I'm from. You know, it's. I was saying to another guy earlier. I was walking around here today, and there's a lot of similarities. I mean, Canada and the UK have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Right. We just have a ridiculous accent. So,
but then so do we. So.
Yeah. So there we go. We can get together on that too. But I think it's similar in the sense that metal and hard rock and all that is sort of an underground sport, and there's a part of me that prefers it that way. I think there's a lot less parameters on what we do, when the only thing I really have to sell, if you want to look at it that way, is music gear.
Okay.
But that's cool because it's not a lucrative genre, so if we get our touring supplies provided for us in exchange for an ad, I'm okay with that. You know, but I think if it was any more, then it changes from gear to soft drinks or condoms or, you know, cars or shit like this.
Sponsorship deals at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think at the end of that, you know, at least at this point, no one tells me what to do.
No.
It's the opposite. They're like, you know, we'd like you to be you and use our stuff, and that's such an honor. But I think any musical art forms that are more lucrative are probably like, well, we want you to do this, but here's what you can and can't say.
I guess it's very short-lived as well, because you've already said you've been doing this for 20 odd years.
Yeah.
Various guys.
I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, that's what's interesting about being out with these bands too, is they're much younger than us. And there's a part of me that I'm just, you know, such a fogey. You know, I'm like wander. But it's also cool to not compete either. You know, knowing Shining is just insane band, and Periphery is hip and modern and progressive.
Are you learning from these bands? Because each of your albums are completely different to the next. Is it?
Well, what it's taught me,
getting like influence from these bands?
yeah, it's taught me to not compete with them.
Okay.
It's great, you know, because now I'm just like, well, what is this? What is the function of this band? I mean, I've got a lot of things, you know, the Casualties thing, or going back to strapping, or symphonic stuff, or stupid puppet shit, or whatever I do, right? But when you're out with bands that do certain things better than you, then you should focus on what it is that you do well. And so I focused on, well, what is the function of DTP? Well, for this tour, before the Royal Albert thing, you know, mid-tempo, emotive, good songs.
Yeah.
You know, like 4-minute long song with a chorus and, you know, a sentiment that you know comes from the heart in a lot of ways. And then that way we don't have to go up and try and out progressive Periphery or out extreme Shining, because it's just not going to happen.
Because the last time you were here, you had Fear Factory with you, right? In this that's two completely separate angles of.
Same. We went up with Gojira. I mean, what are you going to do? Heavier than them? I mean, you're not. Or Meshuggah. You know, you're going to be a better metal band than Meshuggah? No one's a better metal band than Meshuggah. So it's like, but I think all these things teach you to focus on what it is that you do, and I think that ultimately, what I hope people take from what I do is just as simple. That's him. That's just who I am. You know, and so the age doesn't necessarily come into it at that point. I think the only time it does is if you try and, you know, well, look, guys, I'm young. You know, here I am, like a 22-year-old, and I'm playing whatever's hip and all this other shit. It's like, so being out with younger bands is good for me because I've realized that I don't care to pretend I'm anything other than I am, right?
That's exactly You summed it up perfectly.
But also we get along. Like it's all these bands that we just mentioned that we toured with. Like, you know, we're doing this festival in Holland in a couple of months. We're headlining a festival, but it's like it's all black metal bands.
Okay.
You know, like Marduk and Defleshed and all this. And I was like, what the hell are we doing that for? But ultimately, it's like, you know, my relationship with a bunch of these guys in black metal bands is really good. You know, the Dimmu guys came to the show the other night, and we're up there with puppets singing about love and all this shit. And I mean, I think ultimately what it underlines for me is just, if you're being yourself and you're true to the fact that none of us know shit. No one knows fucking anything.
No.
You know, me less now than I thought I did yesterday, of all things. Then there's room for everybody, you know?
Yeah, very much so.
Metal.
You touched on it just now. You've got the Albert Hall gig coming up soon. That was announced last summer, I think it was been booked for some time. What is it about these big shows in London that you seem to like doing? Because you did the Roundhouse a few years back, and that was a big hype and production and stuff. But we're going to see the same sort of production levels in the Albert Hall?
Well, I mean, as long as people don't just figure out I'm a total fraud, you know, they're like, wait a minute, this guy's an idiot. And a lot of people have already figured it out. But I mean, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, holy shit. I'm in London last night. I'm like, this city is terrifying. It's just this massive metropolis of just, like a lot. It's like hyper aggressive and like just the driving and the intensity and all this stuff. But we get to do puppet shows at the Royal Albert Hall. Fuck yeah. You know, I'll take it. And I mean, but credit where credit is due. Our management, Andy Farrow specifically, is from the UK.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant. He's a genius in so many ways, and he has really championed us here in ways that has worked for us and used one event to propel the next. You know, you do Brixton, and then you do Roundhouse, and then you do Royal Albert, you know, and as long as we continuously try and represent ourselves in a way that is honest and fun, because I'm not trying to make a statement. I mean, maybe I am in my own mind, but ultimately, I mean, I'm just trying to give people a good night out.
Yeah.
You know, like have some beers and come watch this. We put a ton of effort into it, and there's a good chance we'll fuck a bunch of it up. But I mean, the stuff that isn't, look, we got huge puppets and like, but it's all on a shoestring budget. You know, like the Buy a Thread thing that we did, those 4 nights and all this stuff. I mean, as over the top as it appears, because the only place we can really pull it off is in the UK right now.
Okay.
It costs us a fortune to do it. So, you know, like the Royal Albert thing is, I mean, it's costing us a fortune to do, but it's going to be awesome.
It's once in a lifetime.
That's it. That's it.
It'll be a special event for everyone going and people involved.
That's it. That's it. And I also think, you know, doing the Royal Albert thing has allowed me to say, well, I want to do a symphony. Why do I want to do a symphony? Well, because I'm going to be dead soon. You know?
Yeah.
Everybody is.
Well, I've actually got some fan questions. That was one of them. Is when is your symphony going to be recorded?
About a year.
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah, life is short. If you're lucky, you make it to your 80s. If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah.
You know?
So is the symphony going to be full orchestra?
Oh yeah.
Full works?
It's going to be ridiculous. You know?
Are you going to stand at the front of the bandstand and
maybe just
do it
pretend, because I don't know how to do that stuff very well. I mean, I'm not Zappa, obviously. I mean, it's, you know, I was never really a massive Zappa fan, but he's so brilliant. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I don't consider myself as such. I consider myself I'm just kind of like fucking around, but I think I've got a high level of sensitivity, which allows whatever I write to be rooted in a real emotional experience, and I think people resonate with that.
Yeah, I think that's how people relate to you. It's because you come across as a real person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. And so when I think about Zappa, when I think about orchestrating and all those sorts of things that come along with that sort of thing, I mean, I make no claims to say that that's what I'm at, but you know, I also well, I'm just going to do it. And people are like, well, you can't. And you're like, well, we just did.
That's it.
You know?
And I think put restrictions on you makes you a bit more sort of fierce to get out there and actually do it.
I love that. And I hope
the corner fighting.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, I've never been in a punk rock band, but I like the attitude. You know, it's like, oh, really? Let's just fucking do it.
Yeah.
You know? And I like it. Like, I think a lot of times it's acted, you know, I get really petulant with it and I do, you know, shit jokes and puppets and all this stuff, almost to be like, not only did we do it, but we were taking the piss out of it at the same time, and that's like, there's something about that I love, right? But I think the symphony thing may be a little different. I'm going to try and, I'm not going to be po-faced about it, but I'm certainly going to try and make it like a real, like, awesome thing, right? Go back to Star Wars and all that stuff, right?
Big sort of, yeah.
Oh yeah, epic. Like,
stadium size symphony.
Massive. Like I always hear, like, you know, on Z2, same thing. We had a couple thousand people doing the choir. Oh, let's do that again. You know, let's make it bigger, make it intense, and then make the quiet parts smaller and smaller and smaller. And then, ultimately, what I hope is to be part of a really cool team, and I am. And without sounding like I'm trying to turn this into some sort of weird sales pitch, the audience is a big part of that. You know, it's not just me or the orchestrator or the producer or the band or the players. It's the whole thing, audience included. And then ultimately, when we do these shows, it's nice to be part of something that maybe succeeds, because everybody's like, is this actually going to work? Or is this just going to fall flat on its face, right?
Yeah, but you won't know until you give it a go.
That's it.
You'll even kick yourself if you don't try.
And that's it. And the last thing I'll say about it is, if you're going to jump off the cliff, you might as well do a swan dive as opposed to just like
do it fast and style.
Yeah.
I do have another fan question as well that came in from Rowan on Facebook. Will there be plans for a Z3?
Well, I left it open-ended.
Cool.
In case, you know, the Ziltoid thing seems to be wanting to come back into my world. But at the same time, you know, I do things that are different from the last record. A lot of the times just because I get sick of what I'm working on. Like, if I work on Ziltoid for months and months and months, when it's over, I don't want to hear that shit anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. And so I naturally find myself going into other directions, like where Casualties was, or the Hummer, or DevLab, or, you know, Key, or anything that's a little different. But then after I do that, I'm like, oh, okay. And then usually I'm like, well, let's do something commercial. And then you do something like Epicloud or AE or you know, something that's really pop-oriented. And then after that, it goes weird again. And then
I heard you on a podcast a few weeks back with Jamie Jaster talking about going out and doing some work with some very commercial people and just turning it down because it's not exactly what it is you want to do.
Yeah, but you know what? That was funny because when that came out, I also have this habit of just, I got a big fucking mouth. And I neglected to say that I asked for that experience.
Okay.
You know, I approached them.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work, and I hated it. But then they sent me mails, and they were so pissed off at me. They're like, you're making us look like idiots here, because you asked for this shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was like, oh, you're right. So I went online, and I said, hey, you know, I did ask, and all that stuff. To be honest, it was a really ugly situation after that, because these are people that I've known for a long time.
Okay.
And then I just ended up like, you know, with my big mouth, but I still stand by it. I fucking hated it. But
you still did it.
I did it, and it was my decision to do it. And so I say to people now, you know, that whole thing is that group of producers. So you find out their names, but I don't want to mention their name because I don't want to compound it.
No.
Are incredibly intelligent and really talented and have 1,000 times the success that I do. So by no means was I trying to imply that these people were like forcing me to do something.
Yeah.
You know, it was me. I did it.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it. So, but yeah, it's another example of my big mouth. Afterwards, I get these mails from these guys going, "What the fuck, you asshole?" And I'm just like, "What? Oh, you're right. I'm an asshole, right? Live and learn."
But you tried it, and
I
it
did.
wasn't for you.
Oh God. And then some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Thanks for taking some time out to chat with us about it.
Thanks for listening.
It's been awesome. Enjoy the rest of the UK, and hopefully you'll come back again.
Our height discrepancy
I'll
here
grow
is
next time.
yeah, no, I've been my slouch is like monumental. It's bad at the best of times. It's okay. Thanks, brother.
Thanks very much.
Great to see you.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Cool, it's Mike from the Mike James Rock Show. It's Mr. Joey Tempest from Europe.
Hey, thanks for having me on here.
No, thanks for coming down to Exeter,
Yeah.
man.
I don't believe we've